the two very important evidences that there was a belief in apostolic authority in the early church is the canon of the New Testament and the so-called rule of faith, regula fidei. Some people think that the canon of the New Testament was invented in the 4th century, or that's when we can really speak about a canon of the New Testament. But this is not true. Even before we had the exact 27 books, there existed a canon. In a functional sense, we can speak of a canon very early. And the fact that the early church separated certain writings from other writings, and we have very early evidence for this, based on apostolic origin. We know that later writings like a book called Paul and Thecla, Tertullian says, it was written in our generation, it cannot be a part of the scriptures. So they knew that those books had to come from apostles or have an apostolic origin, and certainly had to be written at the time of the apostles. So this is a proof that they demarcated certain books as apostolic and called them scriptures. Irenaeus calls the books of the New Testament that he refers to as scriptures. The writings of the apostles are scriptures. Even 2 Peter calls the writings of Paul scriptures. So the canon of the New Testament is an evidence that the early church separated the tradition of the apostles from later traditions. And we can remind our Roman Catholic friends that they also have the scriptures in their hands. So even their tradition makes a distinction between the tradition of the apostles and later church tradition. The rule of faith was this expression, or the rule of truth, which is another evidence for apostolic authority, was used by most of the early fathers, and they were referring to a summary of the teachings of the scriptures, like God the Father, maker of heaven and earth, the Son who was born and redeemed us, and the Holy Spirit, and judgment, and those essential teachings of the scriptures. They summarized it under the name the rule of faith, and it was a summary of the teachings of the apostles. It was not an addition to the writings of the apostles. It was a summary of their doctrine, which was submitted to the scriptures, but used as a measuring rod for the correct interpretation of the scriptures. So they had memories of how the apostles summarized their message. And this is again an evidence that the early church thought that the teachings and the traditions of the apostles was normative for the church and had to be used as a measuring rod when it came to other teachings.